Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pipkin. Yes, we're bright and early at 7:30, but Marvin Powell has some family commitments, so we thought we'd do this a little bit earlier. Marvin, let everybody know what you're going to be doing this morning after the show.
Yeah, my daughter, my eighth grade daughter, Morgan, has a volleyball tournament, and we're out here in near Cartersville, Georgia, home of the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I forgot his name, but we're
Trevor
out
Lawrence.
here. Trevor Lawrence, yeah, his hometown. Huge tournament. Unbelievable how many cars are here right now, blowing up at like 7:15 in the morning, man. So, yeah.
Well, it's okay. Don't mind doing it early. We're going to have a busy weekend anyways, all kinds of football.
So we wish her good luck, Marvin. We wish her good luck.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a lot of football today, NFL, and obviously we're getting ready for the national championship. With that said, we're actually going to start the morning off with a little bit of basketball, but for good reason. Okay, the Big Ten travel schedule was no joke for Mick Cronin and UCLA last season. It's like coaching the old Big East. There's so many teams you don't even know who the hell is even in the league. What he learned in his first season in the league, Mel, I'll tell you, you talk about a humbling situation for Mr. Cronin. That was definitely it.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Yeah, it was different for everybody. I think all the West Coast teams in particular playing that Big Ten schedule. Typically, when the old Pac-12 travel was pretty much limited to the West Coast. Now with only two, it's only two three West Coast teams. Most of their schedules on the East Coast, different time zones. So yeah, that would take a little bit of time probably to get adjusted to, but that's why they get paid the big money, and they can figure that stuff out.
Mick Cronin is used to his Cincinnati Bearcat days, and going to LA and Cincinnati is definitely a big culture shot. Marvin?
Yeah, Mel hit it at the end there. They wanted the money. This comes with it. You know what I'm saying? This has nothing to do with students. This has nothing to do with basketball. This has nothing to do with sports. This is all about business, man. And UCLA and USC and all those schools who are added to the conference, they knew exactly what they were signing up for. No one gave a darn about flights and schedules and classes. That don't matter. The kids will figure it out, right? It'll be on them to figure that out. At the end of the day, they wanted that check, you know what I mean? And they want that TV sponsorship money and everything that comes with it. So, yeah, this is just part of the process. It's what it is. At the end of the day, people at UCLA basketball are happy to get some big conference money checks. So it's all good for them. Don't feel bad for them. They can wipe their tears with their money.
Candy?
Yeah, I mean, they wanted the money of the Big Ten, so they're going to have to take, traveling to get there to their opponents. Obviously, in football, like Oregon, it didn't bother them. Look at them; they made it all the way. The most traveled team is Oregon. The next would be UCLA, and then USC, and then Washington. But then the other thing is remember, this also affects the East Coast teams like Rutgers, because they weren't traveling all the way to the West Coast either. So it's both coasts. The least traveled team is Illinois. But yes, when the West Coast teams joined the Big Ten, they all knew that there was going to be a lot more traveling involved. And the same with when Rutgers and them, joined. So their travel days, they get to see a lot of the country though too. So that's another bonus for them.
Yeah, I love those Big Ten commercials where they have all those trees popping up all the way. That's one of the better graphics to show you how much everything really is. So I don't know. We have somebody in the chat room that thinks Trump is live. Sorry, pal, wrong show. Anyways, with that said, the United Football League decided not to renew former Dallas Cowboy Daryl Johnson's contract. I met Daryl over at last year's Super Bowl. Really nice guy. Certainly had a good vision of the league, but the United Football League has been doing all kinds of crazy stuff anyway. So, Daryl's a great football mind. I know he'll land somewhere else, and of course he hasn't lost his gig on Fox. So Candy, give me your thoughts about Gerald Johnson. We had a chance to meet the guy last year.
We did. In fact, there's an interview, if you want, on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. I don't know why they got rid of him. He was, he's got a lot of experience. He knows what he's talking about, but obviously didn't work out for them. So we'll see what's next for Daryl Johnson.
Mel? Mel?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Well, Daryl Johnson wasn't picked up again by the United Football League. He's still working with Fox, but do you think that was a mistake that the UFL made by letting this guy go? He had a pretty good vision for the league. I talked to him for a while, and now he's not there.
I think more people brought validity to the league. I think he was one of the guys that brought some validity to the league. Because we didn't hear much about it last year. I mean, there was a lot of hoopla surrounding it the first year, but the second year it just kind of happened, and there wasn't The Rock wasn't really out there promoting it like he was the first year. I think the more ex-football guys, especially football guys, and someone like him who's in television, I think the more people you have like him around that the game, the better it is going to be for that game, and the better the chance that it has to survive. I was surprised when I saw that they parted ways with him, because I think he was good for the league.
Yeah, I was too. I never understood the logic, but who knows? Marvin?
Yeah, listen, Moose Johnson. I have to first let y'all know, Moose was one of the fullbacks, one of the great fullbacks that I used to watch and just idolize and love. I thought he had a complete game. He played back in the day when it was when we ran the ball in 21 personnel with a fullback and a tailback and a big old tight end. He was catching the ball. He was picking up the blitz. But most of all, he was the lead blocker for the all-time leading rusher in Emmitt Smith. So I'd be remiss if I didn't, just shout him out for who he was as a fullback and who he was as a person who I looked up to as a fullback myself in the league. Listen, that league needs as much credibility as possible. They need real football people who played the game at a high level, been involved in the game at a high level. Moose represents America's team. You know what I'm saying? A huge brand. Everybody, listen, anybody who's a real football fan and at least the age of 40 and over, you know of or you've heard of Moose Johnson. You know what I'm saying? He was just that kind of player. But, I don't know what their plan is. I mean, I think in these spring football leagues, you're constantly fighting for credibility and viewership and trying to get people attached. So, good luck with Moose. I'm sure he'll catch on somewhere else. I think, as you said, he has to keep with Fox. And, I hope that this league has a plan to bring in some credible people because you need as many fans as possible.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure where they're going from. We'll talk about the United Football League as time goes on, but this is one nugget here, since he's an NFL guy who obviously has worked with the league and been dedicated for spring football for a while. Let's talk about Raheem Morris. His all-time head coaching record at one point was 32-53, which is now 4 games worse than his record than when he was announced as head coach at 21-38. These numbers go back a few weeks, but despite winning 4 straight games at the end of the season, the Falcons finishing 8-9, he was fired. So my question to everybody on the panel is this: do you think this guy gets a third chance, or are all of these interviews that he's getting will just satisfy the Rooney Rule? Mel?
Just being honest, as an African American, I think it's going to be very difficult for him to get a third shot at it. I don't think he really got a second shot. I mean, Arthur is real quick to pull the trigger on head coaches, we've had how many coaches that we had in the last 5 years. I mean, I think he's had the most coaches in the last 5 years than any other coach, any other owner in the league, any other team in the league. I think it's unfortunate for him. I mean, I think they finished off hot, but I guess, I was reading something that they did some type of survey. Arthur did some type of survey, had a company come in and conduct some type of survey, and he felt the team had no vision, no leadership, no direction, and that's what sealed the fate for Raheem Morris. I mean, his fate was sealed a long time ago. It's unfortunate because, again, like I said, they did finish off hot. Heck, they tied for first place in the division, but because of tiebreakers, Carolina ended up going. So I think it's highly unlikely that he would get another head coaching opportunity.
Marvin?
Yeah, the Rooney Rule was put in place obviously just because we want to see African Americans, minorities just have an opportunity to get the job. Just be able to have conversations that can lead to a job, because that wasn't really happening. And then from there, the argument was, well, they're not prepared, they're not coordinators, and but now we realize how much of all that is really a good old boy network and comes down to relationships. And guess what? Most 70 and 80-year-old white billionaires don't have a lot of black friends. You know what I'm saying? So, and did grow up with a lot of black people is what we found out. So the Rooney Rule was put in place just to put people in position who, should have an opportunity, or people who you would think would be able to get an opportunity based upon years in and whatever it may be. Nowadays, it's just, it's a complete sham, I feel like, and it's just being misused when you think, especially when you think about what it was intended to do. With my man Raheem Morris, I think it's realistic he can get another job. I do. I think it's realistic. Listen, the head coaching position in the NFL it's one of those things where for a lot of people, it takes time, man. You know what I'm saying? And granted, you don't always see in the past, you didn't see a ton of brothers getting hired and getting rehired. I think Hugh Jackson had alluded to that earlier in his career. But we've seen Todd Bowles, we've seen my man Raheem Morris. If Mike Tomlin got let go, he'd be the hottest thing in coaching. So I definitely think we're seeing a shift already. But yeah, man, Raheem really got a bad take in Atlanta with his quarterback getting hurt. Kirk Cousins got hurt. You can't win like that in this league. It's hard to win like that in this league. And in spite of that, they went on a winning streak, winning the last 4 or 5 games, including a win over my Saints. So, I think Raheem would get another shot. I do. And I'd like him. I wish the NFL and NFLPA would get together and revisit this Rooney Rule and just make sure it's being used the way it was intended to be used. Because I think nowadays you do have a lot of teams who just bringing in brothers, but they really have no intention to hire this dude. And for that, everybody's missing out.
Candy?
It's a combination of both. And I think partly when you bring in a new coach, you're bringing him into a situation, obviously, especially if someone was fired, that the team wasn't performing already. And so now all of a sudden you're tasked with, okay, let's go. I got to quick change the culture. I got to quick change everything. And sometimes they're not given enough time. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But do I think he will get another coaching job? It's going to be, like Mel said, I think it's going to be hard for him. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it'll be hard. And I'll leave it at that.
I'll make my answer short and simple. 2 and done. He's headed back to be a coordinator, period. You're right. The Rooney Rule is all well and good, but generally speaking, he's had 2 opportunities. He had one with Tampa. That didn't work out. And Atlanta didn't work out. There's certainly a lot of other qualified African-American coaches that I think are more qualified to get their first opportunity. I just think Raheem Morris is going to get interviews to satisfy the Rooney Rule, and that's about it, period. So let's continue to move on. The Chicago Bears in weeks 1 and 2, they were 0-2, and then since then they had a 9-1 record, but they finished the regular season at 11-6. They have a date with the Green Bay Packers in the wild card round. Candy, some thoughts about this one? Obviously, this one hits hits you with a little bit of, how do I want to say, it hits you a little bit harder, doesn't it?
Well, yes, because as everybody knows, I grew up in Wisconsin, so I am a Packers. Grew up with watching the Packers, and obviously the Packers do not like the Bears. It's the oldest rivalry in the NFL. They've this year they split. The Bears are much improved. They've been improving each year over the last couple. Bringing Ben and Johnson in was one of the smartest things they did. Uh, it has really helped Caleb Williams get a lot better, showcase more of his talents. Although the Chicago Bears still do not have a 4,000-yard passer, but I think this will be one of the best matchup games of the playoffs here. So obviously, I'm going to hope for my Packers to come out with the win, but they do have to go down to the Windy City to play the Bears down there.
No.
I think it's the oldest rivalry in football, right? I'm looking forward to a good game.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. Haven't seen Chicago there in a while. Green Bay's been playing well. Only thing bad about it is the Lions aren't in the playoffs. But looking forward to good winter football in Chicago. I mean, this is how I grew up watching football. Nasty weather, cold, and big time brands in the NFL playing meaningful football. So it should be exciting.
Marvin?
Listen, I knew that Caleb Williams was a generational quarterback when I saw him playing at Oklahoma. And then when he wised up and went to SC with Lincoln Riley, you saw him flourish, turn into a Heisman Trophy winner, the #1 pick, and the savior of Chicago. The Chicago Bears, the hiring of Ben Johnson was genius. They needed an offensive-minded coach to pair with their generational talent. And the Chicago Bears fans, I'm going to tell you like this, man. You're about to experience the next 10 to 15 years. Candy, you might not want to hear this, but for the next 10 to 15 years, I think Chicago Bears running that division. I think they will be contenders in the NFC. There's a big game against my former team, the Green Bay Packers. I think it's the Bears' time, man. For whatever reason, and I like Jordan Love. I do. I like the coach for Green Bay. I think Green Bay has a team. But I think Chicago Bears are just ascending. I think they're just scratching the surface as to who they are and what they can be. I'm excited to watch this game. I'm really excited to see what Caleb does. This guy is a football guy 24/7. He's completely plugged in. This is what you want. This is the kind of guy you want leading the show at the quarterback position. And in his playoff debut, listen, Ken, you talked about the Bears haven't had a 4,000-yard passer. He was like 40 yards off. Okay, he was like 40 yards off. It's coming. I know. It ain't 4,000. I know, but I'm just saying it's coming, y'all. Trust me, Chicago fans. The quarterback is the truth. He's the real deal. He will only get better, and I'm looking forward to watching these Bears take it to the Packers tonight.
Yeah, I have a feeling the Bears are going to emerge. But the one thing you can, depending on how long they go, don't be surprised though if Dan Campbell decides to pay Ben Johnson back and start taking a couple of his assistant coaches, because that happened a year ago when Ben was ruthless and went after the Lions staff. And I'll tell you, I have a feeling, I don't know what coaches will end up moving down to Motown, but just you watch out and see, okay? Ben Johnson getting a taste of his own, hold on, Marvin. He's going to get a taste of his own medicine. He really is. I mean, let's face the reality. Dan Campbell beat Ben Johnson twice this season, and he couldn't beat any other NFC North team to begin with. All right, go ahead, Marvin.
I'm just saying, I don't see these guys. Listen, I like Dan Campbell. I like his style. He's a former player, a former Parcells guy. He comes from the old school. I genuinely appreciate him, and I think he's genuine in everything he does. I think this is who he is, man. But I look at my man, like I told you, I see Bubba Gump. You know what I'm saying? I look at the coach for the Bears, and I see 007. These players ain't going to Detroit to play for this dude. Okay?
Right.
Listen. Chicago is a team that is ascending. That whole organization is going up. be on the lookout, Candy. They coming.
Well, I
I said they were improved, but
I
let's
think
just
you could have said it better than that though. I'm just saying I think it's better than that, Candy. But that's
well,
okay. So it's
well,
okay.
Marvin, they are an ascending team. It doesn't matter. I get it. They're playing better. They won the division,
Yeah,
and they earned the right to take on the Packers. We'll see what happens. The last
we'll see.
time that these two teams met in the postseason, I believe Green Bay came away with a win and punched their ticket to the Super Bowl, but that was a few years back. I'm just saying, yeah, I have the utmost respect for Bill Parcells. I really do. We all know how many coaches he's produced and what he's done, but that's beside the point. This game here, it will be interesting because these two teams hate each other. It's one of the biggest rivalries in all of the NFL. I don't know. It'll be an
Yeah,
intrigue. Why do you think
yeah.
I'm getting all my work done early so I can watch this thing because I have somebody else that'll be screaming at the top of her lungs? I still call her a Hoosier girl because she was born in Indiana for a year and a half. She's a Hoosier girl. But today she'll be playing the role of a Wisconsin girl. But Candy Ebling is an Indiana Hoosier. And there'll be lots of Hoosier talk as we continue on here. All right, well, let's talk about some big paydays because Kent State had their fair share of them. And this goes back about 4 years. So get this, in 2022, between Georgia, Washington, and Oklahoma, they got paid $5.3 million, and that's in 2024. In 2023, they get Arkansas, UCF, Fresno State, and then they got pocketed another 3.6 million bucks. So there you go. Now, obviously, you're talking about 2024. You have Tennessee, Penn State, Pittsburgh, and all that was worth was 4 million bucks. And then 2025, Texas Tech, Florida State, and Oklahoma, that was worth 4.2 million bucks as well. Marvin, I'll tell you one thing. I worked with a guy like Howard Schnellenberger, and when you talk about that 4 year thing that began with 2022 and eclipses now, these teams need these programs to go ahead and finance their operation.
Yes, they do. They do. Listen, the money and Scott, I may have missed the first part of the question. I didn't know if it was attached to a team or to a person,
Kent
but yeah.
State.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Kent State.
Oh, Kent State. Yeah, Kent
Yeah,
State.
I
Okay.
think they're the
I think.
Golden Flashes, I believe.
I think. Didn't Nick Saban go to Kent State? I thought he did. Nevertheless, listen. College football is big money, man. It costs money to be relevant. It costs money to bring these kids in, to recruit them, to sign them. You got to put together events, for collectives, and yeah, it's an expensive process, man. It is. I don't know. I know you just read off some numbers there. I don't know how much money they're actually bringing in versus how much money they putting out in NIL and with their football budget. But
Right.
it's a high ticket sport. It can be very profitable if you know what you're doing, and and we've already talked about other teams who are just starting to bring in their own football programs because of the profitability of college football right now.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Indiana's schedule. I mean, they played Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. Those teams need those big time programs. Small schools like Kent State need those big time programs in order to fund their athletic department. They don't have the budget the Big Ten has, or the SEC has, or even the ACC. So it's important for those schools to get those to have those games on their schedule to fund their program, but also gives the players an opportunity to size themselves up against those Power Four conferences and see how they can stand up to it, because the NFL, when with those Power Four conferences, I mean, it's a small leap to what it would be like playing in the NFL. So it's a good opportunity for the kids as well.
Candy.
So Kent State University's athletic director has conceded that he didn't spend nearly as much time last year engaging in student athletes and coaches as he would have liked. He explained that he's been busy working behind the scenes to figure out how Kent State could handle another seismic change to the college sports landscape, meaning NIL, and how he can compete and how he can, pay his team for NIL and recruit and get the money to recruit some of these talent players. Part of it is playing some of these teams that are going to pay him 1.5 million, like FSU, Texas Tech. They all owe him money so that he can start paying them. That's part of him trying to navigate this whole NIL money situation.
See, I've lived this before with FAUL. Howard Schnellenberger had no choice but to take a beating on the field, but that's how they got their stadium built. That's how they built the program, by taking these paydays. I totally get it. Well, last night, what you saw in the national championship game was a couple things. You saw the battle of the billionaires. Phil Knight against, obviously, Mark Cuban. What was so interesting about this whole thing? And let's go over the particulars on this. Okay, number one, Phil Knight built Oregon into a national powerhouse, where and Mark Cuban has actually been donating recently. When you look at the amount of money that's exchanged, Knight's donating $32 billion, which is his net worth, okay? And obviously Cuban is $6 billion. So that's a lot of money, 32. Now, we want to welcome Scott Solomon to the show just in time for this one. Thanks, Scott, for being on. So we're talking about the battle of the billionaires. Last night you had Phil Knight with a net worth of $32 billion and Mark Cuban a net worth of $6 billion. How did it turn out on the field last night? Guess what? Indiana blew out Oregon 56-22 to punch their ticket to Miami and face the Miami Hurricanes. Let's go to you, Mel. What are your thoughts exactly about what took place? Let's talk about the battle of the billionaires. You got Phil Knight and Mark Cuban. These are pretty heavy hitters.
I think Phil Knight's got way more money than Mark Cuban. But I didn't realize that Mark Cuban was associated with the Indiana program until probably a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know, how much money he's given to them. But I mean, let's not take away from what Kurt Signetti's done down there. Still, right. Even though Mark Cuban may be contributing to the program, they don't have any 5-star players out there. They only had 8 4-star players playing out there. I mean, Miami and Oregon and the likes, Ohio State, they're still getting all the 5-star athletes. Kurt Signetti, what he's done in 2 years at that program is unbelievable. So, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from, what he's done and what the players have done. Phil Knight obviously has done a lot for Oregon. I can say that for certain. He's done a lot for Oregon because you look at the players that are going to play at the University of Oregon. Mark Cuban hasn't been involved in Indiana that long. Maybe he's just jumping on the bandwagon. I really don't know, but I only heard this a couple weeks ago. But what Kurt Signetti and his folks have done down there and those kids have done down there is unbelievable. And I don't want to take anything away from that.
We'll turn over to Marvin.
Yeah, listen, in regards to the battle of the billionaires, hey, why not? You know what I'm saying? These guys love their school. The schools can use the donations. Mark Cuban absolutely has been an advocate for Indiana. I've heard him reference it before in the past. Obviously, we all know Phil Knight is doing everything he can to make Oregon relevant. Oregon has 1,000 different uniforms, but 0 championships. So, and they won't be able to change that this year as they took that big L from Indiana. Man, Kurt Signetti is winning on culture. He's winning on real player development. I heard them say how they practice the least of all the schools. They're out there for like an hour and a half versus a 2-hour practice. It's more of a mental thing. It's more of a culture thing. It's more of a get in your head and just really try to change the way you think type of thing. He's doing it, man. He whatever he's doing, his approach, it's different and it's working. It is unbelievable how they were the physical team against Ohio State. Unbelievable how they just pulled away from Alabama, separated, and then last night to watch them jump on Oregon again for 20. Right. You know how hard it is to beat a team twice in one season, especially when it's a good team you just beat. They beat Oregon in the first game and beat them worse in the second game. You know what I mean? They're the real deal. They are the real deal. And listen, I don't know if the model we have now where these billionaires, are putting up all this money and you got these 30 and 40 plus $1 million rosters. I don't know how sustainable that is, but for now it seems like these billionaires have no desire to stop. They keep cutting that check, and hey, I'm happy to see these kids getting paid. I'm happy to see these young athletes being compensated. But I do need college football to fix the transfer portal.
Good luck. We got a superstar in the chat room called Friend Zone Millionaire. He says, good old NIL to think my father was banned from the NFL for suggesting a per diem in college. I breathe you. Then he follows it up with, what was the last time Indiana had a football program anyone to talk about? Amazing. Don't worry. I'll give you plenty more to go ahead and take those comments and really, really make it interesting when I compare and contrast Indiana. Scott.
Boy, Indiana really did beat them pretty bad last night. They beat them like they stole something. I thought that Indiana played really well. And when you look at Mark Cuban, he likes to rally behind sports teams. He owns the Mavericks. He's getting more involved with them now that Nico Harrison is out.
Right.
And he's putting his money where his mouth is. And Phil Knight's doing the same thing. But Phil Knight, you can put 1,000 uniforms on them. They still played like crap.
Candy.
Yeah, it's interesting because Knight actually is worth more than Cuban is, but Cuban came onto the scene in 2024. Same with Kurt Signetti, bringing Indiana back to relevancy. We always thought of Indiana as a basketball school,
Right.
and now between what Cuban and Kurt Signetti has really done, we're now considering it more of a football school, and more athletes are wanting to go to Indiana, which is a great thing. It's great for more competition in the Big Ten.
Well, here's the thing. Bobby Knight, we all knew was a king of the campus before. But the reality when you think about this whole thing is this. The reason why the Big Ten wanted Oregon is they wanted Phil Knight and his money is what they did. That was one of the reasons they were able to absorb the ability to go to the Big Ten. Well, he didn't care. You travel whatever way you want. For all we know, he probably got him a private plane. We don't know. Phil Knight was one of the big intrigues for the Big Ten to even bring him on. Of course, you have Washington with the Seattle market. We know about UCLA and USC with the LA market. So more power to him. But that said, let's segue over to what I was about to say. And let's talk about Alabama versus Indiana. And I'm going to talk about the all-time program comparison. The all-time record between those two schools is 999, 318, and 42 for Alabama. Indiana was 506, 692, and 38, 427 percentage, whereas Alabama was at 743. And then we have national titles, 18-0 Alabama. And then the conference championships, 30-3 in favor of Alabama. Bowl appearances, 61-13. We know who's in charge of that number. Consensus All-Americans, 84-9. That's Alabama. Players drafted in the NFL, again, 439-184. Yes, again, Alabama. The first season in college for Alabama was in 1892, 133 years ago. Indiana, 138 years, and Rose Bowl appearances, 9-2. The end result, guess what? Indiana leads the series 1-0, right? And Alabama's 1,000th win is going to have to wait until next year. And here's the thing. Their only appearance resulted in a 38-3 Hoosiers blowout of Indiana. Who would have thought that they would, one, beat Alabama, and two, crush them, Scott? That's surreal.
Well, I believe that Indiana was going to thump them before the game started. I'm not sold.
What?
I believe that Indiana was going to thump them before the game started. I'm not sold on Ty Simpson. I don't believe he's the quarterback that Alabama traditionally has. He's not a very good pocket passer. He's not mobile, and he just does not play the way the typical Alabama quarterbacks of the past have played. Now, that's not to say that Indiana didn't play a great game. Indiana played a really good game, and it's going to be a very tough natty.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, the way I see Indiana and Alabama, I never thought it could get that bad. What do you think, Mel?
Yeah. What was the exact question? I got lost when listening to Scott.
Well, we're just comparing Indiana versus Alabama. All the numbers
There's no
for everything are prohibitively one-sided toward Alabama, but really what it comes down to is Indiana got blown out, and they lead that series 1-0 based on a 38-3 loss, but they lead in every other category from wins to bowl appearances, national titles, 18-0. Now I have to take that Indiana has a chance to get one. And the list of numbers goes on. All Americans, 84-9, players drafted 439, 184. These numbers are just simply one-sided for two schools that who knows if they would have ever played, but all of a sudden they played once, and Indiana leads that series 1-0. That's how interesting this gets, Mel. You can take it from there.
Yeah, it's a good story. This is not the Indiana that we grew up watching. Obviously, it's not the Indiana that I took a visit to when I was a high school senior, and Indiana was recruiting me. It's not that Indiana. I went there, went to Bloomington. I knew I wasn't going to Indiana, but I only took 3 visits. I said I might as well go ahead and go. One of the things that really turned me off, Bobby Knight was a coach there. This was before the shot clock era. And the second half, they played 4 corners the whole half. They just played keep away in the second half. Didn't try to score a bucket. So I knew I wasn't going to Indiana, and it was cold. Not that it wasn't cold in Michigan, but they were losing. So again, this is not the Indiana that we're accustomed to. I mean, they were really one of the doormats of the Big Ten. They were not a very good football team. They've never been a very good football team. If you were a young, aspiring college athlete, Indiana was not on your short list as far as a school that you'd want to attend. Indiana was a school that you would attend if you couldn't get any other D1 offers. You had some D2 offers, and then you got Indiana. You're like, okay, I want to play Division I football. I'm gonna go ahead and play it at Indiana. So this is we're comparing apples and oranges. It's not the same Indiana that we grew up watching. This here, I mean, they look like Alabama. I mean, they're crimson and white. I mean, they look like Alabama. They play fast, they play physical, and they're very disciplined. I mean, it looks like a Nick Saban football team. Obviously, he comes from Nick Saban's coaching staff. He's probably learned a lot from Nick Saban, but this is Kirk Cignetti. He's put his own spin on this, and it's just not the Indiana that we grew up watching. So you just can't compare the two. Now, let's look in the next 10 years and see what Indiana does versus what Alabama does, because then you're comparing apples to apples.
Well, right now it's a good feel-good story. I think I've called on everybody, right? Just want to make sure.
No. I got something for you, Scott.
Go ahead, Marvin. Bring it on.
Here you go. I know he's coming at us. Come on. I know it. I already know it.
Listen. When you look at Indiana football, right? I think they're in the bottom 5 of like the most losses ever. All right, in the history of college football. They right down there with UCLA, okay?
Yeah, here we go.
In regards to this horrible program. Kirk Cignetti, listen to me. This shows you how amazing Saban is. When you watch Alabama, a lot of us still look at Alabama like it's Saban Alabama. It's not at all, not even close. Saban got the heck out of there when NAL got involved. He didn't want to have to compete and deal with that, and I get that because he was running a different kind of program, even though our rumor has it that they was getting paid too. Anyway, with Alabama though, it's the fascination and the fear and all that. It's a done deal. I don't think it's that anymore. And whereas I thought Caleb DeBoer would never ever leave Alabama, he wouldn't go to Michigan, he would do this. Let me tell you something, boy. Them people at Alabama, they got the fire on his. He's already on the hot seat. In the playoffs, won a bunch of games this year, had some big wins. This dude's already on the hot seat. Kirk Cignetti, on the other hand, you're looking at one of the greatest coaching jobs in the history of college sports. unbelievable. This guy, he brings Indiana from a nobody, from a who, to a number one team in the nation, headed to the national championship, and they're probably going to beat these almighty athletic, super fast, super athletic Miami Hurricanes.
Well, that's putting it out on the limb, isn't it? All right, let's go back to the chat room. Okay, I had Friend Zone Millionaire. If I remember correctly, Mark Cuban built his fortune with some sports information decades ago. Oh, probably did. Mark Cuban's a shrewd businessman. Alabama does an excellent job of retaining local talent. Can't get by on your laurels, though. Still got to win, no doubt about that. And I like the emojis here, and he should because he's right on target with a lot of things. And then there's a wow out there, and it's even now. Alabama's done. All right, well, let's continue on. A lot more to get to there.
Wait.
With you, Kennedy. Go ahead.
Thank you. Indiana is proving that NIL is going to improve some of the schools that didn't have let's face it. Everybody thought when you were a couple years ago, where did you want to go to school if you played football? You wanted to go to Alabama because it has the historic past and everything like that. But let's face it, now that you're paying certain players, people want to get paid. I'm going to throw something out at you. As of January 8th, 2026, the average annual pay for a football player in Indiana is $40,341 a year. Just in case you need a simple salary calculator, that works out to approximately $19.39 an hour. So it's about $3,361 a month for players, the average. And I get that because now they're paying Fernando Mendoza $2.6 million. But I think because they have NIL money, because they have Kurt Sinetti, and they're going to be more of a relevant program. They're going to be able to bring in more NIL dollars and bring in more talent that maybe they weren't being able to bring in before NIL. Because people want to earn the almighty dollar.
Okay, back to the chat room. Who was Boise State years ago? They recruited SoCal and got better right away running a tight program. Well, there's definitely a fertile recruiting ground, definitely in Southern California. Let's stay on the Oregon team for another moment. Dan Lanning got an extension of $11 million for 6 years to be the fourth highest paid coach. Well, I just want to know really quickly under rapid fire, will he get another raise? Let's forget about last night in general, Marvin. The body of work for Dan Lanning. You think he's due for another raise despite what happened last night?
Man, I can't stand Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning is an amazing coach, though. This dude, he's brought a certain element to Oregon that Mario Cristobal didn't, or any other coach. I mean, listen, take away their Indiana experience. Oregon is a physical team. They're a run-first team. They have dynamic athletes. I know that the NIL, the Phil Knight money is relevant and it's big, but he's really established a tough culture there. And I think a lot of coaches can look at him as to how to do it and what he had to do. And again, I realize again that Phil Knight had a big part of that, but he's doing a great job of turning Oregon into an old school SEC team in regards to how they play up front. So I don't like him personally as a Trojan. I don't like his style and some of the things he said about my Trojans, but he can coach his butt off and he can get his team motivated.
Well, so you think he's still going to get another raise at some point? That's a main question.
Absolutely. Listen, they're going to hold on to that guy as long as they can. They're going to keep paying that guy as long as they can. And the next time there's a big job opening, his name's going to come up, and guess what? He'll get another bump. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think he deserves it. I think he's established a serious culture there, and I think they're going to continue to write that check to keep him through all these hiring cycles.
Candy, rapid fire on this one. We don't need a million researchers. Is he getting a raise?
Yes, he's 48-8. He's getting a raise.
Scott?
He's going to make his money. I think he's got another contract extension in him. Every time a job opens and his name comes up, he's going to get an extension.
What about you, Mel?
Yeah, I think he'll probably get another extension. I'm not a Dan Lanning fan either. I'm like Marvin on that. I'm not a Dan Lanning fan, but yeah, he'll probably get another. In the landscape of college football, yeah, he's going to continue to get paid at a very high level. He's going to continue to win at a high level because he's got the highest payroll in the industry as well. So when you have the best horses, you're going to perform the best as well.
Well, it's unanimous. I think he's getting a raise. Oregon, I mentioned about Phil Knight and his checkbook. They'll make sure he gets another raise as well. Well, I'll tell you what, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins, some interesting developments with them recently. There's a report that cutting Tua Tagovailoa this offseason would create a record-setting $114.2 million dead cap hit for the Miami Dolphins, surpassing the Broncos in $85 million hit for releasing Russell Wilson in 2024. If he's designated as a post one cut, June 1st cut, then he could end up that number could be spread out for 55.4 million in 2026 and 61.6 million in 2027. Marvin, to this point, I think Tua is a bust, but these are numbers that's going to be expensive to cut this guy and get rid of him, even though I have a feeling that unless the new coach decides to keep him, this to me is ugly for Miami.
Yeah, listen, I was a big Tua fan when he came out of Alabama, but the reality is I think he was damaged goods from the get. I do. I think when he came into the
Right.
league, he had some issues with his hip, and then he took some pretty bad hits and the concussion and this and that, and and then you hear about him getting into it with the coach, and that's never a good thing. And this, the press conferences and the back and forth with them. They got to if the Dolphins did a good thing by firing their head coach, they got to go ahead and make that same move with Tua. I don't know how much value he's going to get being damaged goods, and I realize the dead money doesn't help them as they try to build and move forward. But they got to get that stench and get that whole situation out the building. I don't think he's the guy over there. I don't know if he's going to give any team 15, 16 games, to be honest with you. And you got to hit the reset button, man. And whatever that means in regards to the cap hit and how you build your roster, it is what it is. But I think you have to get some of those contracts and some of those players out. They made a start with the head coach because he's the head of the whole thing. But with that comes the players next.
Good morning, Anthony Lewis. Anthony Lewis is one of our top commentators here on the network. He does a really good job on the Sports Exchange and talks baseball. Candy, some thoughts about Tua and the dead cap.
It's time to cut ties with him. He's not getting it done on the field. I don't think he's getting it done in the locker room. If you're having arguments and disagreements with your coach, that's not a good look for your quarterback, especially for the rest of the locker room to see, especially if you're bringing in rookies and young guys. They don't need to see that. That's not a healthy culture. So as much as you don't want to take a big hit, sometimes the best thing for you to do is to sever ties and get rid of that and bring in a young quarterback that you can start molding.
Well, the question is do they have a lot of confidence in Quinn Ewers, and will Zach Wilson ever play? You never know. I still think there's some football left in Zach Wilson. I don't know. So we'll turn over to Scott. Maybe not. I could be wrong. We've run the course with Zach Wilson. What are your thoughts, Scott?
Zach Wilson signed a 1-year deal, so he's up. He would have to be re-signed. As far as Tua is concerned, arrivederci, good riddance. I got no use for Tua Tagovailoa. Never liked him. I thought he played well at Alabama, but like Marvin said, he is damaged goods. He was damaged goods coming out. He's one hit away from getting killed. I think he should take his money and retire.
Okay. Yeah, you know what, Scott? I actually agree. He should retire. He's definitely getting hit with concussions, and at one point he probably contemplated it. But, Scott, I actually totally agree with you. He should take his money and retire and get insurance policy. Well, you have the final word on this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think his best days are behind him. He had one good year. Everybody was excited when Mike McDaniel came over there. He was offensive guru. It's showing more and more that Brian Flores was probably right because he didn't want to hitch his wagon to Tua, and
Right.
Mike McDaniel hits his wagon to Tua, and he's in the he's going to be sitting at home just like us on Sundays watching games. So Tua, I never really cared for him. Like I said, coming out of Alabama, I think he was a good college quarterback. Something about that little lefty delivery didn't seem like it had a lot of zip on the ball or anything like that. So, and again, he's very, very fragile. Like Scott said, I mean, he's one hit away from something very, very bad happening to him. We talked about it a few years ago that I thought he should have retired after seeing him lay on the field the way that he was laying on the field after he'd been concussed a number of times in 1 year. So I think it's time for the Dolphins, obviously, to move on from Tua. The Broncos were able to move on from Russell Wilson and endure that big salary cap hit. So they can live with and they can endure the salary cap hit and reset things for the new coach coming in.
Okay, let's go back to the chat room. Honestly, from Friend Zone, honestly, Paul III kept it a buck. Kudos to him. So there's a compliment, Marvin. Ouch. In fairness, it's easy to look when you're surrounded by talent. No question about it. All right. Marvin danced around it. Now we're going to get to it. What a difference 2 months make. Owner Stephen Ross had planned to keep Mike McDaniel long-term and wanted to see him lead the team competitively while Miami began laying the groundwork for a renewed front office direction. According to Diana Rossini, well, guess what? McDaniels gets fired after a 7-10 mark. My goodness. What a difference 2 months make. Marvin.
Let me tell you something. When Mike McDaniel first got hired, you thought he was a GQ model. You thought the way the media portrayed him, his look, they said he was African American. They had him with the cool shades. He had the tan. The hair was looking like Mr. South Beach. All that, right? Straight out of a Jay-Z video. Let me tell you something. You look at Mike McDaniel recently, man, you would think he's 2 seconds from being strapped down, straight jacket, suicide watch. And I don't play with those words, man. Completely different energy, completely different demeanor. I don't
Looks
know.
like Delonte West.
I guess, man. Look, I hate to say it, I feel like the job was too big for him. I think he came into this situation with the wrong mentality, wrong attitude. I think he needed to be, alpha male out the gate, and I think he was GQ, and I think that's turned on him. Yeah, man, I'm happy that Stephen Ross put him out of his misery and let him go. I'm happy he'll have a chance to regroup. This is his first head coach job. He's a young dude. It takes time to settle in and really understand what it means to be the leader. And as shocking as it may sound, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get another gig in a couple years after he goes through a few runs as a quarterback coach and then goes back to an offensive coordinator position.
Right.
That young boy he got torched, man. He got torched, and you saw the signs in him as time went on.
Yeah, that Miami Dolphins job will age you. It really has. They've been relevant in ages. Candy?
Yeah. He comes from the Shanahan coaching tree. He began his NFL coaching career as an interim for the Denver Broncos back in 2005. But he has served as assistant coach for Texans, Commanders, Browns, Falcons, 49ers, and offensive coordinator. And then he came down and was hired as head coach for the Miami Dolphins. Now, Miami Dolphins is a dumpster fire. I mean, it's not a good organization. It doesn't have the right pieces. Obviously, we were just talking about Tua and the problems he's had. If you have problems at quarterback, it's hard to overcome them to win games, to keep yourself as a head coach. And let's face it, the NFL is all about results. So if you're not getting results on the field, you're going to get fired. And some people are better coordinators than head coaches. They can be masterminds as a offensive or sometimes as a defensive coordinator. But when you put them in the role of head coach, if they're not in the right situation, and typically, again, I said earlier that when you get hired as a new coach, most of the time it's because the previous coach was fired because your record wasn't good enough. So you're going into a situation that's not good. Some people can overcome it. Now let's face it, like Ben Johnson we talked about went into a pretty good situation. We all said that they had the weapons, they weren't just getting the results on the field. He's taken his team to the next level. Some coaches can do that. Some can't, and some don't get the instant results that people want. But Miami wasn't good, doesn't have enough. They have some of the talent, but they have a lot of they had head cases too. So it took the right guy, and Mike McDaniels just wasn't the right guy. Maybe not right guy, right time either.
And I want to backtrack what Mel said. I agree with Mel 100%. Ryan Flores is a good coach. This guy will get another head coaching job. I know he will. And the fact that he didn't want to itch his wagon to us says a lot. Scott, what are your thoughts about Mike McDaniel?
I like Mike McDaniel. I think he's a good coach. I think he was given a raw deal because Chris Greer didn't know how to evaluate talent. They had a problem with the general manager, not necessarily with the coach. All he could do was coach the players that he was given. And Chris Greer was a horrible talent evaluator, couldn't draft. He would sign guys to 1 year minimum deals. They would show out and then leave. Look at Calais Campbell. He's a perfect example. Why sign him to a 1 year deal and let him walk? I think Mike McDaniel's going to be back in the NFL. He'll be back as a head coach, and he's going to show Stephen Ross that he's capable of winning.
Yeah, I can see where there'd be interest in him. I don't know whether it'll take 1 or 2, 3 years away from it to get away and regrouping a little bit. I somehow, some way, he's a really great, brilliant offensive mind. We'll see where it plays out. But right now, that, like Candy's been saying all along, the Dolphins are simply a dumpster fire. Mel, you have the last word on this.
Oh, I think he's a good offensive coordinator. I think Dan Campbell needs to call him, and they need to bring him over there. I think he's a great offensive mind. They do a lot of great things, schematically. They do a lot of great things offensively. That's the one thing the Lions they never could get a rhythm offensively, even though they may have been one of the league leaders in scoring and yards and all that kind of stuff. They never could really get a rhythm going. I mean, the big difference was you look at Chicago and you look at Detroit. And, Chicago has Detroit's previous offensive coordinator. I think, some people are meant to be coordinators. Not everybody's meant to be a head coach. And I think because of his personality, he's kind of quirky. He's a little different. I think he's probably more suited to be a coordinator, just sit back in the room in the dark or whatever, just drawing up, designing plays. He's one of those kind of crazy geniuses. And I think that's where he's best suited. And to utilize his talents, and that's nothing against him. I mean, to be a head coach in the football in the NFL is very, very difficult, and it's a job that is not very forgiving. I mean, every year 1/4 of the league turns over. Every year 6 8 coaches are losing their job. So, I think he'd be a great offensive coordinator. I think that Detroit needs to give him a call.
Well, actually, you know what, Mel? They have given him a call. Dan Campbell has reached out to him. We'll find out.
Well, he needs to get on the private jet and go down there and bring him to Detroit. He doesn't. I mean, I think he's the best guy for the job based on what we all saw last year in Detroit.
Listen, I have
and
no
where
problem
they are
with
right now.
I have no problem with a Mike McDaniel hire as an offensive coordinator in Detroit. I would endorse that move all day long. Final topic of the night, we're going to actually have 2 things to talk about. The Miami Hurricanes did earn the number 10 spot in the college football playoff. How many people believe in them now, Marvin? I mean, the number 10 spot, you talk about unders, a seeding here, a double-digit seed, and now they're playing for the Natty.
Listen, rankings mean nothing because at the end of the day, you still got to play the game. What's on paper is absolutely nothing. So you get in the playoffs, man, it's about who's healthy, who's coming on, who's really coming together as an offense, who's gelling as a defense. And the Canes right now are just playing great football. They looked good against Ohio State. They made plays. They look poised. And then last night, playing against or 2 nights ago, they looked really good as well. So playing against an Ole Miss team that was inspired and had some real talent. Mario Cristobal, I think, has really turned his program around. I think he has them playing at a high level at the right time. I think he's really competent and just efficient. I think he knows what he's doing. Um, I think he has some real dogs going into this fight, but I think it's going to be a serious matchup for them. And my first thought after the game last night is, how is Miami going to defend Indiana? How is Miami going to stop Indiana? I mean, that was my objective first thought once you realized they were going to be playing. But nah, man, the Canes have proved to everybody who doubted them, who made a big noise, who made all that noise about trashing Notre Shame, I should say. They had a lot to say. But the Canes have showed improved. They have fought through the gauntlet of college football. And next Monday on the 19th, we're gonna really find out if the U is back. Because you ain't back, if you don't win it all. You know what I'm saying? When we say the U is back, we talking about championships. Not back in the playoffs, back to winning championships. So we're gonna find out if they back come the January 19th.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's only one word that Cristobal knows right now. It's called violence. We'll see. And I'll leave it at that. That'll be my.
I like when he says that. I like when they say that. Because I believe him. I believe that's what's on his heart. This dude played at UM back in the day when they was really the U. So he played with some real dogs on offense, defense, and now O-line. So when he's talking violence, he's talking old school football, and I love it.
Well, I've worked with him since 2022, and I definitely believe when he says violence, he means violence. Okay, we'll turn over to Candy.
Miami Hurricanes they're very good defensively. Mario has really got them playing, yes, violence, hitting, hard-hitting guys, big guys. Will they be able to, how should I say it? How can they control Mendoza or not? My thing is how well is Miami's offense going to do against Indiana's defense? Are they going to stick with a running game, a run and pound with Mark Fletcher and Malachi Tony? But the Hurricanes at one point this year were ranked number 2. They had two bad games that really dropped them down further. Rankings are rankings. That's subjective, but I'm hoping it'll be a really good game come a week from Monday.
Scott?
Well, obviously, I really like the University of Miami in the national championship game. My biggest concern is Mendoza against the cornerbacks. Miami's very thin at the cornerback position based on injuries. And that's the only thing that I'm concerned with. They've got some real ballers at wide receiver in Surratt and Charlie. I think the two of them are really good players. And I think the U is, I don't want to say the U is back because there's never going to be a U the way it was in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
But this University of Miami team is for real.
Mel?
You're asking, is the U back? Look, it's exciting. I think it's college football is better when Miami is relevant. I think it's good. I think it's even better when UCLA is relevant and USC is relevant as well. But let's be honest. I mean, Indiana is really the talk. I mean, yeah, it's great that Miami is back in the conversation, but I think they came back in the conversation at the wrong time. They're going to run up against a team that obviously I think a lot of people are rooting for because they're the underdog. They've never done this before. Everything that they're doing, they've never done before. It's something new each and every time they go out there and step out on the football field. It's been forever that they've been to a Big Ten championship. They've never been into the college football playoffs. So everything they're doing, they're setting history. And I think this is just a year of destiny for them. You look at the way that they play, they're extremely disciplined, and they're playing against a team that's very undisciplined, that commits a lot of penalties. They don't
they don't beat themselves. Miami has a tendency to beat themselves. They play complementary football in the sense that once they get out to a lead, then you're going to rely on Carson Beck. Now, how much faith does Scott do you have in Carson Beck being able to lead Miami to a victory with his arm, with his decision making? Because that's what happens once they get up by 2 or 3 scores. Then you have to abandon the run game and you have to start throwing the football. That means you have to put all your faith in your quarterback. Do you think your quarterback can bring you back from a deficit? I don't think there's any quarterback in the country that can deal with that kind of pressure that Indiana puts on teams. So, yeah, it's a great story, but I think this is the year of destiny for Indiana.
Yeah, I think
Miami's going to fall behind by 2 or 3 scores. I don't think they're going to have to worry about that. I think they're going to open the running game.
I mean, Oregon felt that way too. I mean, they had a game plan until they got punched in the mouth on the very first play of the game. So I mean, all that changes, right?
Carson Beck.
I don't think Carson Beck is as good as Dante Moore, but you know.
Well, I mean, my ultimate prediction is going to be Miami, but I'm going to tell you, if Miami gets attacked the way Oregon did last night, it could be a tough night for the Canes at Hard Rock Stadium.
Miami with the points, or are you taking Miami straight up?
I don't know. I'm not a big one of those. Come on, don't get me involved with points.
I mean, I'm just trying to understand your
logic.
logic.
I don't play the point spreads game. I just go straight up, man.
I'm just trying to understand your logic.
I don't have any logic.
You bet with your heart.
Well, hold on. Listen, Mel. Scott Solomon has a guy named Fernie that knows more about that. One of these days we'll get him on the show. Maybe we'll see if we can get him on next Saturday as a guest. How do you like that for a show? I'll let Scott work on that. And then they'll really add some. But I don't play logic. All I do is compile content, get it out there, and make sure it sounds good. All right, let's go back to Friend Zone. Now, one more topic. And he says, rankings are subjective, AF, especially if you're not taking care of. If you're not taking care of what, Candy? Put it up there again. Business.
I
Okay.
take care of business.
He said, I normally stay quiet around professional athletes, journalists. Hopefully, I'm not annoying anyone. You've been a star on this show. Don't worry about it. Money line all the way. All right, final topic of the morning. We know Marvin has something to do, but the show's going along pretty well. And that's this. According to the Miami Hurricanes, the 2001 Canes Natty crowned the best moment in Canes football history after 3 months of voting. All right, we're going to start with Scott. Obviously, you've been around these parts longer than I have. Do you agree with that assessment that the 2001 Natty was a real special situation?
Well, I don't think anything is ever going to top the 84 Natty when they won with Schnellenberger.
Right.
Because that was the first, and that's what put the University of Miami on the football map. The 2001 team was special because of all the players they had that graduated and went to the league. And I don't know if you're ever going to have an assembly of talent the way that 2001 team was. But as far as capturing a moment in time, I'd have to go with Bernie walking off the field with the football with Schnellenberger's arms wrapped around him.
And you know what, Scott, great minds think alike. I actually covered that team with Howard Schnellenberger, and Howard Schnellenberger is a father figure to me. I'm definitely going with Bernie Kosar and Howard Schnellenberger, but I'm not down playing the 2001 title. But that when you win that first one and against a heavily favored Nebraska team, it's pretty hard to top that act. Mel?
Yeah, I mean, who was the quarterback of the 2001 team? I'm having a hard time. Oh, who was on there? Ray Lewis. And, I mean, who was on the team? I don't remember. You got to help me out here.
Bromberg.
Yeah. Well, I'm old school till I die, and obviously, I think the first one's probably the most memorable, the most important. And then I got an opportunity to play against the University of Miami in 1985 in the Fiesta Bowl. It was the 84 season, but it had been the 85 Fiesta Bowl with Bernie Kosar was there and Jerome Brown and Alonzo Highsmith, Eddie Downtown Brown and Melvin Bratton. I think those are some pretty special guys as well. So I think probably I would disagree about the 2001 team. That might be the most memorable because is that the last? Is that their last one that they've had? So that might be the reason why it's the most memorable.
Candy?
Yeah, I think I mean, Canes have a rich history, but I think you got to go back to the first title when they did the shocking upset. You know, I think 2001 it was almost more expected because they had so many big names. So I think the most memorable you got to go back to 84.
All right, Marvin, you have the last word, and then we're going to wrap the puppy up.
Listen, when it comes to some of the greatest teams and the greatest collections of talent, you could look at any of those Pete Carroll and Reggie Bush teams, but that 2001 Miami team, you probably talking about the greatest collection of talent in college football on one team. They had first-round draft picks in all pros who were playing on special teams because they couldn't get on the depth chart on offense and defense. They had, it's really remarkable when you look at the roster that they had at that time. I mean, that they just really hit on a bunch of 4-star, 5-star, 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star guys. And it's just being a college football fan, college football fanatic, being objective, probably the greatest collection of talent we've ever seen. So, yeah, they were very special. And I would probably have to – I understand what Salomon's saying about, 84 and what it is to be the first, in that first breakthrough team. I get that. But at its highest point is 2001 Canes.
Okay, hey, friend zone, just a favor, if you don't mind. You've been a great addition today. If you haven't subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please do so. We'd love to see you more often in the chat room. I'll tell you, you really know your stuff. I'm impressed with everything that you put in the chat room. We need more people like you. So please, friend zone, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. It would be totally appreciated. With that said,
Scott, can I just add one last thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
On that team, the Hurricanes of 2001, they had 38 players drafted from that team, including 17 first-round picks.
So if you want to sit here and talk about a special team to 2001, if you base it on that stat, that's a good way to go ahead and judge that team there when you have that many players. Great stat, Katie. You really know how to bring them on stat-wise, but it's still not changing my mind about 84 because it was the first one, but that's a great case to make for the argument for the 2001 team. With that said, Katie, well, I'll let you go ahead and give us a station break, and then we'll go right around the horn. In fact, we'll call on you last. Marvin, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
Yes, you can catch me on social media, Marvin Powell III. Marvin on the mic is my handle. You can catch me all week with the South Florida Tribune, or Tuesday evenings, Wednesday mornings, Wednesday evenings, Saturday mornings. You can catch me with Nets Roundtable, Jags Roundtable, roundtable.com, I should say. And Scott, what am I missing? I'm missing something here.
The Kings and the Nets.
Kings and the Nets Roundtable, exactly. Thank you, Salomon.
Well, don't forget about the Florida State Seminoles, and I don't know if you want to dive into baseball. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll make a TBD, but I know he's going to be part of the Knowles coverage for sure. Right. So, all right, Mr. Roundtable, go ahead and put it out there. You have whatever time you need to promote our other business venture.
Well, we're part of the Roundtable Sports Global Sports Network. You can find me at jagsroundtable.com, bucksroundtable.com. Just go to roundtable.io and hit choose team. You'll find great news about any team that you want to read about. Go into your favorite app store, whether you have Android or iPhones, and download the Roundtable app, and you'll be able to catch us on the go.
Much appreciated.
It's Scott Solomon, NFL.
Much appreciated, friend zone. We appreciate you telling your cousins about this channel, and we're glad that you're on it. Great stuff, Scott. All right, Mel.
Yeah, you can find me on all social media at Melfar Jr. You can follow what we have going on for the youth here in Georgia and Michigan at melfarsuperstarfoundation.org.
And last but not least, Candy, take us home for a station break, which entails that.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, talks about his 40-plus years in the media business and how it has evolved and changed. Go get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you have not subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please do so. We have lots of great content. Share us with all your friends and family, and then click on the notification so you're notified every time we go live. And one last thing, if you like Chicks Talking Sports, go to the Chicks podcast and also subscribe there. And Tuesday nights at 7:30 Eastern, Chicks Talking Sports on the Chicks podcast as well.
That's a great show by that group. It really is. You got Candy, you got Megan Price, you have Carrie Johnson, Jennifer Matthews Lewis, right? And then who was the other one? Dawn. I don't know.
Richardson.
Dawn Richardson. So if you haven't checked out that show, that's a good watch. And I'll tell you, they're great young ladies. I'm really blessed to have a great team around me across the board for everybody. So on behalf of Marvin Powell, who's about to take care of some daddy business, Candy Ebling, Scott Solomon, and Mel Farr Jr., my name is Scott Morgan. We're out the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday edition of Inside the Pigskin. We have a lot of programming coming up next week. Stay tuned. So have a great weekend, everybody, and enjoy the football. Take care, everybody. Bye now.